This thing on silence. Silence running. So, Jeff, we're going to talk about training today.
Training, right on.
We haven't started yet, actually. We haven't started the podcast yet.
Yeah, he did, because I think he went like this.
No, I don't think so. We're not live yet. We're just discussing.
It's live.
It's live.
It's live, editing live. So it's not actually, well, maybe we are
live.
Kind of?
Kind of.
Okay, well.
Stop clapping, goddammit.
Well, address our audience. Moderator.
Hey guys, how's it going? Another IHF Insider podcast for you today. And I'm here again, Mark with the 3 J's, Jeff, Jed, and Jody. So today, topic is going to be training. Talking about training theories, different types of training, strength versus size training, all types of good stuff related to training. So, like we always do, going to go to my right here, start off with this guy right here.
Why don't we go
Jeff.
the other way around to the...
Jeff wants to change it up. So today, I try to switch sheets with these guys, and they were like, no, they'll get confused. Don't do that, Mark. Don't do it. So, but then apparently they
I just feel like I don't want to dominate the conversation.
Okay. Well, I mean, I go to my
like
right.
the last one.
So
Okay.
I guess today, Jody, last podcast, there was a few people
So it's really hard to hear.
couldn't hear you because Jody's very soft-spoken, guys. He's very soft. But
I'm Batman.
he has a lot of good things. Not today, Robin. He has a lot of good things to talk about. So what do you got for us, Jody?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about specifically strength training versus like hypertrophy training or building muscle, I mean, they differ slightly because one is going to be more geared towards your performance. So your strength training is more geared towards performance. So not necessarily taking every single muscle group that you ever train to failure. And then strength, along with strength, the majority of it comes with coordination. So like the more coordinated you are, there's going to be a strength increase. So a lot of it's going to be a bit more technique driven, and you're not going to necessarily be training muscles to failure, purely because you're trying to, hit like a certain number, for a certain amount of reps or something. You're going for a time period, you're trying to increase like the amount you can do within the limits of whatever it is that your sport may be looking for.
Yeah.
Whereas like with bodybuilding, it's kind of like this exponential increase in muscle that you're always shooting for.
Yeah.
You're always shooting for.
Right.
And so a lot of times in bodybuilding, you're always looking for muscular failure.
Mm-hmm.
And with muscular failure, I mean, muscular failure can happen in 5 reps. It could happen in 30 reps. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's like you're basically going, like whose name I cannot remember at the moment, but 212 bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Guy Cisnino.
Okay.
He just basically said as many reps as possible with as heavy weight as possible with good form.
Yeah.
That's kind of the end result, or that's the game plan when you're going into the gym as a bodybuilder. It's like you're just trying to do whatever exercise you need to do that day for that body part, and you're trying to take pretty much every set, on every exercise until you really can't do any more correctly.
Right.
And then that's where like other kind of old school or long time ago introduced methods like cheating, drop sets, stuff like that,
Right.
Where you can utilize some of that. Or having a training partner, obviously, can help you get force reps.
Yeah.
You can, there's so much you can go into when it comes to that.
Can you explain to us what force reps are? A lot of people probably don't know what that is.
So force reps are basically going to be, let's just say you're curling. You already did 2 sets, and both sets were like 15 reps.
Okay.
Right. That last set, you went a little heavier every single set. Last set, you're kind of striving for 15 again in your head.
Yeah.
You get to 12. By yourself.
Yeah.
But that like 11 and 12 are super hard, where form's starting to get a little lax, but you still want 15. So that's
right.
where your training partner is going to jump in and basically guide you on the positive. So if you're doing curls and you're trying to come up, he's going to help you come up. You still produce more force on a negative. So you have kind of more energy left over in that negative portion. So your goal is to try and you're already fatigued in that positive portion of the movement.
Yeah, right.
But your training partner is going to help you get it up for 3 more reps, but you're going to control that weight down.
Right. Okay.
You know, and so you're trying to get maybe to that 15, but if you got a couple more in you, why not keep going?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing, is you're trying to fatigue that muscle in the positive and the negative portion of the exercise.
Hence the forced rep, guys.
Forced.
You're forcing it.
Oh,
yes.
forced negatives. Forced negatives. Are my favorite.
There's a whole.
Oh, the forced negatives, the next level. Yeah.
Forced
That's
negatives
the
are
next
my
level.
favorite.
There's a whole handful of stuff. And we need to be like him. So he's so organized. He writes his notes down. Because there's a whole handful of things I want to touch on what you said.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Wow.
But I'll wait my turn.
Use the force, Luke. So
you can-
that's good. Yeah.
You can touch the things I said if you want.
Yeah. No, that
Just
was
touch
good.
them.
That was good.
Physically.
And then we'll let Jake go.
So that was a great explanation. Yeah, Jody, that was awesome, man. That was great.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
There's so much more we can get
I mean,
into.
this is
right,
like
right.
we have so much to talk about, right? But I just want to keep it pretty simple, somewhat, so people have a better understanding. Because I know I have a lot of clients that I'll say certain things and they don't even understand what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is good to kind of explain what we're talking about when we use certain terms, certain lingo, kind of get an understanding of what we mean and what that actually means. Because I think sometimes too, I'll tell people to do this and they'll nod their head and they still don't really understand what I really want from them, you know? And I explain it to them and they still kind of get
It's okay
confused.
not to know.
Yeah, it's totally fine. And you can ask more than once, you know, because I've had that. I explain things to people and then they go, okay, I get it. And then they kind of don't. And then I watch them and they don't ask me again because they're afraid to ask maybe, or they're embarrassed, you know, and I'm like, oh, then I'll have to explain again, you know, and they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, you can ask me.
Can I add one more thing to
Yeah.
that? I would say a lot of times too is, which I kind of already mentioned, was like that training to failure thing, right? That's, you know, could happen 5 or 30 reps or 100 reps, doesn't even matter. But the thing is like whatever it is out there, whatever information is out there, you know, like an ACE certification type course or something, they're always going to say like 8 to 12 reps is hypertrophy.
Right.
You know, strength is like, you know, 4 to 8.
Yes,
they're always gonna
that's
give
a
you this rep
standard.
range.
Yeah.
But what are you doing within that rep range? That's kind of more so what
It's
matters.
that rep range under
right.
a percentage of max effort, though. Like,
Right.
you know,
And the intensity,
Right.
yes.
But this, the thing is like
you wouldn't
training
like
to
bench the
failure
bar for like 8 to 12
bodybuilding. It's
reps.
like, I mean, Dave Palumbo talked about doing incline bench presses for like 4 reps.
Right.
You know, and that guy was
It's huge.
huge.
I mean, it's thick. Yeah.
So-
and you see guys that are like that. And I do have to say, like,
Some guys are genetic responders to
yeah,
resistance training.
just
Like,
you give them
they
a
look at weights
10-pound
and grow.
dumbbell,
Yeah, they
a
look at
10-pound
weights and
dumbbell,
grow.
and they'll get,
Yeah.
they get results.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, but there are people that do train with extremely lightweight, and they'll do, you know, tons of reps. I mean, they'll just sit there all day, and you don't see much of a change, you know. And I see that a lot, and I'm like, you gotta add some weight to that, you know, because there's not enough resistance on that muscle to stimulate, right?
And I do think that, like, obviously going like super high rep, like when I mentioned 100,
Yeah.
that's going to be probably very pointless. Like, you're
Right.
probably not going heavy enough to really gain any kind of like hypertrophy effect.
Right.
The muscle is not getting a demand to grow bigger; it's getting a demand to last longer.
For endurance, yeah, it's more of an endurance thing
Yeah.
at that point, right?
Mhm.
So, what you got for us, big?
oh,
Jeff?
I go next. Okay,
Yeah, go
good.
ahead.
I don't know.
We'll just go
Yeah.
around.
Touch it,
Whoever-
Jeff.
Whoever wants to jump in, I don't know. We're not that. This is our
Well, there's
third
a lot
one,
of points
so-
I want to touch on. Like,
Good.
seriously, when you're talking strength training, what kind of strength? Functional strength, strength for your sport, strength for powerlifting. Like, there's so many variables when it comes to strength training in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, you want to be strong off the line of scrimmage,
Right.
or you want to be strong under a squat. You know,
Right.
and how that differs from bodybuilding training quite a bit, because if your goal is just to be strong, let's just say at the squat or the deadlift or something like that, you are using every like muscle, piece of momentum, like adjoining muscles, like supportive muscles to get that weight up.
Right.
Any means possible. Your goal is to get a certain amount of weight from point A to point B.
Right.
Any means necessary.
Right.
You know, obviously under good form, because you can hurt yourself and all that.
Yeah.
But hypertrophy training, you're actually taking a particular muscle and putting under max tension. You know, without the recruitment of other muscles trying to help it out, because the goal is to try to develop the muscle, you know?
Yeah. That's
And then one thing that, and I want to get you guys' take on this too, just like when you said, just train everything to failure. I'm a big guy big proponent of training to failure. I take almost every set to failure, but what I've learned is that it kicks the shit out of your central nervous system.
Oh, big time.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, big time.
And then there's I would not do squats to failure. I would not do deads to failure. I mean, we did deads to failure when we did that little deadlift challenge. You know what I mean? It was just that was to failure. You know what I mean? Failure. And look what it did. We were wrecked.
Oh yeah.
For
but you have to admit though, for years, even for me, I was always if I wasn't wrecked the next 3-4 days after training, I was just man, I got to go harder. I mean, that was my old thinking, when I was first coming up. Now, I don't train like that personally anymore. I train differently, but my thinking was it's kind of like what he said. I mean, you got to hammer it.
Well, this is the thing that kills me, right? So how many times have we heard this? You got to train you have a gun to your head and you're going to get that last freaking rep. That's just going in and killing it with everything you got, right? And then there's but stimulate, don't annihilate it, right? Well, wait, that's two fucking totally different things.
Well, you had Lee Haney, who said stimulate, don't annihilate, and then you had Dorian Yates, who did the whole gun thing. If I put a gun to your head, could you want right? So there's two different people, right? And Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia, was it 8 times? Yeah, 8-time Mr. Olympia, and then.
But I don't compare myself to those genetic freaks. But I'm saying
they both got.
But there's a clear difference between just going in and absolutely killing it, because then your body is just recovering. When you take 2 to 3 days, and you're wrecked. Yeah. I don't think that's making an adaptation or what we call a hermetic, adaptation or hermetic stressor,
But what you said, it's the whole purpose of splitting up body parts. This is say you do.
But even still,
nervous system.
But even as of recently, I was doing the bro split, and you were even telling me, why are you training that hard? Why are you training that hard? Because it's the only way I know how to train. Yeah. I mean, I know how to train other ways. It's the only way I enjoy training. Right. It's to absolutely kill it.
Right. Yeah, because it's that's what.
But you know what? I wasn't recovering, not at all. No, in fact, I was losing strength, losing size, and everything. And then all of a sudden, when I still train like that. But instead of doing that 6 days a week, I took it down to 3 days a week. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I was recovering. All of a sudden, I started growing again. I started getting stronger again.
But you still train. When you do train, you train very intensely.
Yeah, so there's
very hard.
So, and that's what I'm getting at, right? So if you're going to do that, train every set to failure, the volume has to be down.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
But then you got these young guys that can handle that kind of shit all day long, you know what I mean? But I think there comes a point where you absolutely can overdo it until where you're not making that hermetic adaptation, which is like hypertrophy. The muscle is adapting to the stress that you just gave it with your workout, and it grows from there. It comes to a point where you go in and you wreck that muscle. Instead of it adapting, it's repairing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and now you're just in repair mode, basically.
Because it's interesting. You got different theories, right? I mean, you got guys who they want to lift. Like you said, dudes be in the gym for 2-3 hours, right?
Oh.
And then there's guys, like me, for instance, and I've always kind of trained like this, about an hour, about an hour, sometimes a little bit longer when it was leg day, because I'd take longer breaks. But I mean, not really, I never really did 2-hour training sessions.
At the intensity that I go, there's no way. I could
that's what I'm saying. And guys I train hard, I kill it. And it's my workouts are 3 hours, I kill it. And I'm like, is it really even humanly possible? Are you going to really do 80 to 90% intensity for 3 hours? Come on, dude.
No way.
No, it's not going to happen. I don't know. So, but a lot of guys think that they are, man. I mean, I get a lot of guys that really
when I do
that
group sessions, that's an hour, 10 minutes, hour, 15 minutes. Yeah. Everyone's wrecked.
Yeah. And that's wrecked. 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, right. And they're wrecked, because they haven't done that kind of intensity. They don't get people.
They're wrecked, right?
Absolutely wrecked.
I love that word. Wrecked. We like keywords: wrecked, hammered, smashed. These are bodybuilding terms, guys.
That's right.
But yeah. So, so you're kind of on the same page as me. I want to get these guys' opinions, but on the duration of training, do you guys feel the same way? Like me, I'm more of a. You don't have to be in there for 2 hours. An hour, if you kill it right, if you do it right, it's enough. It's plenty enough. Not including cardio and stuff. This is just weights, 1 hour is good enough.
I think you should be able to get it done in an hour.
I mean, sometimes I'll do chest workouts.
But I've definitely...
for 45 minutes. I could do a chest workout. I mean,
I definitely subscribe to progressive overload. Like you're going in, you're just looking to get stronger on each of your lifts, looking to get a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. Obviously, you're not going to always add weight, but that's not necessarily becoming stronger. If you can get an extra rep, you're getting stronger. But then again, in order to do that, you have to kind of log or measure certain lifts, like, are you going to go in and do the exact same lifts every single workout? You can. I mean, that's a lot of what progressive overload is, but that becomes really like boring,
Yeah.
I like switching it up. Now, I'm not really saying, you got to do the whole muscle confusion thing. I just enjoy like switching it up.
Hold on. Don't jump. Now you got to explain what muscle confusion is, because people might not know what that means. So just explain.
Well, I forgot who actually coined that.
I know it's an old term. But just explain it real quick.
Well, basically, it's just that if you go in and hit the muscle from different angles, it doesn't have a chance.
You change the workouts
because
all the time.
One factor in training is that a new stimulus is going to be an effective stimulus. And it's often when somebody has a plateau, when I have clients come to me and they're plateaued and I'm like, I'm not getting any stronger and this. Well, how are you training? And they tell me, well, I'm doing this heavy ass this and that or that. And I say, okay, well now switch up your training to you're doing a whole lot lighter.
Different, yeah.
Yeah,
Change
a lot more reps,
scheme,
more of a hyperplasia kind of pump set where you just, because you can create hypertrophy multiple ways. It's not always just like heavy like load on the muscle, like just by volumizing the muscle, that also creates hypertrophy, like those pump sets too. So often I'll take somebody who's been training in a certain way for a long period of time and they said they're plateaued, and I said, well, let's try it this way. I mean, what you were doing is effective, it works, but there's multiple ways to get to that same goal, And then we tried a different way. We add in like some of those intensity techniques, drop sets, negatives, force negatives, those cluster sets, time under tension, all those kind of things.
There are a lot of words, guys. A lot of it's just a lot of stuff talking about.
But I think, you got to keep your training fun. You got to keep it fun.
No, for real.
I've been doing it as long as we have. Like I've been training for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And if that was to do the same 6 lifts for everything, I would be bored out of my skull like long before,
Yeah, what's interesting though to me.
But I'm also not.
Bodybuilding is different though. I mean, we like. I don't know about some people, but like me, sometimes I'll get under a bar and I'll do it. And I'm like, it feels good. Like it just I haven't lifted for a few weeks. I'll get on that bar, but like there's like a feeling. There's this muscle memory feeling and just. I like it, even if it's the same thing. I used to do squats all the time, right? Like every week, squats for like years. And I got to a point where, I looked forward to doing that squat when I was like, all right, today's squat day. Like so I didn't mind doing some of the same exercises. And I would change it.
Right.
But there was a base,
I still squat. I still deadlift. I still,
Right.
It's still a dumbbell bench. I don't barbell bench very much anymore.
Yeah. No barbell,
Well, Jed's the master of changing every exercise.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what he has to say.
Oh, yeah?
All right. Jedediah.
When it comes to training strength over training for size, like you said earlier, what kind of strength are we talking about? We're talking about powerlifting, because then we have to bring in muscle mechanics. And you're going to see a lot of these training principles overlap. Like, for instance, if I have somebody, which I train usually for power, I train people for powerlifting too. There is going to be an isolation bodybuilding aspect to it on some of the lifts. So it's like when you're restoring a car, you just don't do it while it's all put together. You take everything apart, refurbish, do whatever you got, then put it back together. That's exactly what we do. So, but I might group the workouts by exercise instead of body parts. So if you're doing deadlifts, maybe deadlifts, barbell rows, rack pulls, stiff-legged deadlifts, which you would usually do on a leg day, right? Mm-hmm. And then I would put the leg day further enough to where if I hit the hamstrings again, it's not going to overdo it. Mm-hmm. So with now that's functional mechanic type strength. And now for bodybuilding, if I think strength, I think, okay, 4 to 5 reps using just that muscle he's trying to work. Mm-hmm. So I don't want you using mechanics. I want you isolating the muscle right there. But if you're training for size, why would you do that in bodybuilding? Well, one of the best answers I've ever heard, if somebody asked you, what's the most effective workout in gaining size, or I would say all of them. Like, there's certain bullet points, like you said, there's a bunch of reasons why your muscles grow when you work out. The more of those you can hit, the better off you are. Right. So you're trying to hit all those checkpoints. So even when I was doing this in high school, I started realizing if I rotated rep ranges and techniques week by week, the results were so much better. You may grow a little slower, but you won't plateau. Plus, you're also developing the quality of the muscle because you have the low rep stuff to building like the graininess from the strength and stuff, and then you have the high rep stuff. So you're getting more of a fascia stretch in that part of it. And even with powerlifters, I won't do necessarily high reps, but I'll do weeks of supersets. And they usually wonder why I'm doing that. But then when they're at the meet, if you're doing bench squat and deadlift 3, that's 9 lifts heavy as fuck. That's gonna wear your ass out.
Oh yeah.
If you're used to doing supersets and stuff, and you go back there and you're only doing 1 rep every now and then, everybody else is blown the fuck up. You're still ready to go. And I've seen it. I've done it. I've watched it work. And I've had guys that go in there on their last lift and still be fresh as shit while everybody else is hunched over, fat, out of shape, not used to doing the endurance and stuff, so they can't hang.
Yeah.
So, but so when I design these workout programs, I rotate phases, even if it's powerlifting, but I do more phases for the bodybuilding. So, there'll be like 8 to 12 week hypertrophy, and the only goal for that is to as much weight as you can over that rep range, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the strength. So somebody, why you got a strength phase? 4 to 5 reps on mostly compound stuff. If I have low reps like that on cables and things like that, on isolation stuff, I will do stuff like a 4-1-4 cadence where you're moving really slow for 5 reps. But, somebody asked me, why are you doing strength if bodybuilding's about the 8 to 12 rep range? Well, think about your core strength. If you can bench 225 for 1 rep, and then you start building your strength up to where you can do like 245 for 1 rep, then when you do your 8 to 12, you should be able to do more weight over the 8 to 12 than you could when you had the weaker bench. Right. So if you're doing more weight over the 8 to 12 rep range, you're going to grow. So there's weeks you have to take off the focus just on the strength, and you take that and apply it back when the hypertrophy week comes back around. Then I have I rotate low reps, high reps. I have weeks, you guys see where I do bands and chains on just about everything because, you get, I really think if you change the tension during the rep, that is something really unique, and the body sometimes is like, what the fuck is this? And it starts having to adapt. If you're pushing weight and it's getting heavier or the tension's increasing, think about when you're doing a dumbbell bench.
Resistance,
yeah,
right.
if you're up here on the dumbbell, it does no big deal.
Right.
Yeah. Now, if you got a fucking 30-pound increase for the band pulling on you up here, it's almost harder to hold it up here than it is to start down here.
Sure.
So now you're giving the muscle something it hasn't seen. You can't do that every single week because
you're giving it tension in a different area of the range of motion of that of that muscle.
And there's a difference between bands and chains. People, you think about the same concept that increases weight and tension at the top, but chains are fun. Bands will kick your ass.
Yeah.
They will fuck you up.
Bands are good.
And I've never heard anybody else say this, but I honestly think using bands, especially not too close to contest time, but somewhere in there, is going to build in some of the detail because you're squeezing the muscle harder. I really think that definitely helps with the detail. And that's also why, I'll have 1 week where it's all what I call intensifiers, where we're doing slow negatives. Holds will be like 10 reps, 3-second contraction hold each rep. Or I'll do every third rep, do a 4-1-4 cadence, because if you can control the weight better, you are getting stronger.
Yeah.
So, somebody could be benching 75, 80-pound dumbbells every week, but if the first week they're all over the place, the second week it's smooth as shit, you're getting stronger. It doesn't matter if the dumbbells are going up or not.
It's true.
So, been every type of workout I've tried growing up, I've seen the best results when you rotate phases and rep ranges. So usually I hit the hypertrophy recovery about every 3 weeks. The second time you hit it, I do it for 2 weeks straight, because then by then everybody's taxed out. Because I have like 3 or 4 phases. You run through them twice, then you definitely need 2 weeks of just 8 to 12, and you really start seeing the numbers go up, and that's where you see the results at. And for other reasons, I've been doing this shit for about 20 years, and I get bored. I love coming to the gym and working out. It's the thing ever since I was a kid, I was like, I want a job where I can work out whenever I want. Nobody can fucking tell me I can't work out. And I found it. But at the same time, I get bored as shit. So I have to sit there and watch videos and think of new things to do. And you guys see me in here, I'm always finagling with shit, trying to think of new stuff to do. And it keeps me interested.
Yeah, that's
so.
That's good.
I'm a lot of that stuff. Even if you even go as far as to say stuff from bodybuilding stuff, I've applied to like triathletes and stuff to increase people's swim and increase the thrust when they stroke and stuff, and it's worked. So just because you're a runner or you're a swimmer does not mean that studying bodybuilding or studying strength training is not going to help you, because there's something from everything you can take that can make it better. And I always try to devise a plan that takes the best aspects according to what goal that person has.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, what I've discovered, like with some of my clients that are sports specific and stuff, is when you give them a bodybuilding style of workout, you really have to take into account like muscle mobility, joint mobility, which in bodybuilding there's not a lot of that. Like it's just pump that muscle. You know what I mean, like that. But but we're looking for that full, like doing what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I account that, but I definitely do, just like yourself. I've learned periodization it has been phenomenal, because I kind of do a similar thing where I do a strength phase, and then I do more of like the hypertrophy phase. That's where I have a lot of those intensity techniques, and then I do like a pump phase. Where I'm just coming in, I'm just like highly pumping and volumizing the muscles, and I cross between those, because there's no way I can do the strength training. I tried as far as I can get with my intensity. What used to be, I could go like 8 weeks, and then as I got older, I started going. I can get about 4 weeks of freaking like to where my joints are screaming at me, and then I got to jump, and And that's why you saw like more recent. We're constantly jumping and doing those, those periodizations, because I can't hang.
You can even tell the difference. Like if you guys ever do circuits or giant sets, if you do them with exercises of like 10 to 12, but sometimes I'll be like, I want to see what happens. We do like 3 or 4 compound exercises of just like 4 reps heavy as shit. I think that wears your ass out more. When you're doing circuit training and you have like 4 reps of 3 exercises that are heavy.
I've done that.
That shit will mess you up.
I do that.
And what you were saying about mobility, nobody does this, but I'm guilty. I used to do it, but I stopped. I think everybody should do at least a yoga class once a week.
I agree with you. Stretching
for joints.
Bodybuilders are very guilty of not stretching very much, and I think it's super important.
On an off day,
and it's a huge thing. On an off day, whatever. Even
what's
after
tough is finding the yoga classes that aren't just fucking weird, because a few yoga classes that
YouTube video.
I found a few.
There's a lot of good videos on YouTube.
Because I visited a number of schools, and then I'm just like, and you got to sit there and do this like chant and shit, like and everybody's got these weird tattoos. And
we love everybody here at IHF. Guys. Can't you tell? We love them all. No, but
like find me a good power yoga, I know there's a few. I
think Zen yoga is the one where they hold the stretches for a long time. So I usually say people that's the one you should look for.
Because even
let's do power yoga when I play.
I've
was
tried
like
that
a lot
before.
of hold, like
and the hot
stuff.
But yoga kicks your ass. Like I've done it.
I did for a long time.
They can for sure.
Yeah. So, I just don't want to join a religious yoga.
We don't become a yogi.
Sign up on the dotted line,
right?
So I've been training jiu-jitsu now for like the last 2 years, and I had to kind of switch over my training a little bit.
A lot of it.
Well, I was trying not to. Actually, the first year, I tried to just keep doing bodybuilding, and it wasn't working very well, because what would happen is I would do my, my heavy burnout sets, and I would go to class, jiu-jitsu class, and I was tired. Like physically, my body was so tired. And then I move on the mat, slow. I mean, I'm not saying I'm that much faster now, but I am faster. I do move better now. I was definitely a lot tighter. I moved a lot slower, and a lot of that, I have to say, it's because of the movements that I was doing, bodybuilding, and really getting the blood in the muscle. I'd be on the mat, and I'd be used to just grabbing and holding. And everything would get pumped up, so my muscles get pumped. And then I'm sitting there like, once you get pumped and you're trying to do a sport like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, like it's just bad. It's just so bad. You're dying, you're trying to get air, your muscles are pumped, you just got to rest, so it's so hard. So I learned, especially in the last year, I started changing a lot of different training, doing more circuits. But I also still did some lower rep stuff. Like I would do some explosive training. So I would do like a box jump, say. I would still do some lifts, but I would do like a 5-rep box jump, like explosive, really fast, boom, 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 and then move on. So it's not all high reps on all this stuff, Some people say, just do like 20 reps box jumps, do, like 20, pull-ups or things like that, high reps. No, like I was doing some lower reps in between some of my other sets to kind of get that, to be able to like explode, And then of course, keep my endurance up, right? So that was the whole purpose of doing the whole circuit, is to keep on moving, keep my heart rate up. But also, I don't want to give up too much strength either, right? And then I don't want to just do strictly bodybuilding, and then I don't want to just get all this crazy pump.
Well, how would you explain it to an individual, because you have a lot of training experience, as a trainer as well. Let's say you had an individual that, like yourself, maybe just started jiu-jitsu and he's 2 years in, and now he wants to get stronger. Like what program would you put him on? Stronger for his jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, stronger for jiu-jitsu. So it depends on how many days he's training. So if he's doing jiu-jitsu like me, I do jiu-jitsu 4 times a week. So
say he's doing this
4 days a week. It's kind of a lot. I mean, so you really have to watch, like, because there's jiu-jitsu training where you're just practicing the moves, and then there's when you roll, right? When you actually are using a lot more. Rolling takes a lot out of you. So and most schools, I mean, you're rolling at least twice a week. Sometimes it's not every day you roll. Just depends. So
we rolled every day. Classes,
that's what I mean. So that takes a lot out of you. So there's no way. It's going to be really hard for you to train jiu-jitsu 4 days a week and then go lift weights like four times a week. That's going to kill you. I usually recommend maybe 3 times a week of weights, or maybe even twice a week. Depends, you know what I mean? I would say, because you could get away with, if you're doing jiu-jitsu 4 days a week, you could lift twice a week. And probably one day is going to be more on the lower body, and then the other day would be more upper body. And I would just say, I would add in, say for instance, they would be like a strength movement. So maybe have like a squat in there for like legs, right? I would have a squat. The reps, I would probably keep the reps on the lower end with that. And then do that set, knock out your sets on squats, and then go to a circuit right after that, you know? And there's another one too. You could do squats, heavy squats, and then you could explode. So you could do like your heavy set, 6 to 8 reps. Then right when you put racket, boom, do like jump squats, like 5 jump squats, explosive, really hard, right after. Okay? So that keeps you, so you can explode. So you're lifting heavy, but you're still able to explode. That's the whole thing with it, right? You want to be able to move fast.
Right.
You just don't want to be the big strong guy. You want to be able to move and be strong. So that's kind of how I would do it. Probably 2 days a week, maybe 3 if you can handle it. And I would split it up. Probably one day would be more upper body, other day would be more lower body, strength training wise. I would find 1 movement or 2 movements where I would go pretty heavy on it. Lower reps, probably that 6 to 8.
Like a compound movement?
Like some type of compound, whether it be like, say for instance, back.
Or like one you can overload.
Yeah, you can overload. Say you're doing, I don't know, like, okay, say for instance, like pull-ups, right? For most, like a heavier guy like me, like 220 pounds. I mean, if I do 10 pull-ups right now, it's kind of hard for me. Like, I used to do more, but 10 for me is hard. So that's a pretty hard movement for me. So I could do pull-ups and do like 1-arm rows, 1-arm dumbbell rows, and go heavy on those. And those are good movements. That's probably it, like heavy-wise.
I can get a sick-ass back workout just from doing pull-ups.
Oh, yeah. No, like...
Where I walk a
row and a pull-up to me. I used to do a workout where it was just a pull-up and a row.
Yeah.
And I'm done, like fried, right?
Like, if that was to pick 2 back exercises, I'm sorry, I know we're getting off tangent. But, like, I would do pull-ups and then, like, a bent over barbell row. I could have,
all day.
Yeah. And every muscle on my back, I'd be like, on it, just on those 2 exercises alone.
Yeah, so, that's how I would do it. And, I mean, there's so many ways to break down training. Like, I've done workouts where I would do, it was almost like a bodybuilding workout, kind of. I would do, like, say, I would combine back and chest day. Because my whole thing is, if you're training for like sports, you don't necessarily have to do a lot of arms, like shoulders and arms. You really don't. I do maybe more chest, back, legs. I focus. Those are bigger areas, right? And it hits the arms and shoulders anyway.
I went a whole year.
I don't do a whole lot.
And that was last year.
Yeah.
But, an entire year without training arms at all.
Right. I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And I never had great arms, to be honest with you. But guess what? They also didn't shrink.
Right.
Not even a half.
Well, because you still get
not even a little
stimulation.
Bit. Yeah, right.
Yeah, still get stimulation.
Because my buys are wrecked on back day. Right. And even though I try as hard as possible to keep my arms out of the motion by, just hands or hooks, leading with the elbows,
Still
exactly like how you explained the back row machine. That was beautiful. Yeah. I always tell that to my clients. You train back, your hands are just hooks. Don't grip it tight because the whole arm is tight. Yeah. You got to get the stressor from here, which is starting at your hands, back to here. You want to minimize this link as much as possible. But even still, when you're going really heavy, you know, your arms is much weaker than your back muscles. It's
Right.
you're gonna feel it, you know.
Yeah,
and my thighs would get wrecked, you know.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, so like I wouldn't even really do that much arms. Like I like to combine. Like I would do like a lat pull down with like a dumbbell press, like a flat dumbbell press. You do it both. So you superset, lat pull down, boom, dumbbell press, boom. Not crazy heavy. I mean, enough. You're probably doing 10 to 15 reps on both. And then you could go and you could do like a 1 minute sprint or something. Where you can go on the assault bike, do that for like a minute, pretty hard. But get off of it, walk back to your things, do those again. Yeah. So that, you know, that's another type of, right, you're able to kind of stimulate, you're getting some strength in there, but then the cardio aspect is still there. Some people don't always agree, and you shouldn't do cardio while you're doing strength training, but I don't know. I kind of like both.
I think it really all just depends 100% on like what it is you're training for.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so like when I was in school, a lot of the stuff when it comes to like performance training is that you're kind of taking an order of like energy systems. So you're trying to basically just deplete power, then strength, then hypertrophy, and then endurance or stamina.
Yeah.
And stamina and endurance are going to be something very different that a lot of people don't understand. Is that endurance is just going to be your ability to like do something for a long time.
Right.
Stamina is your ability to recover and be able to do all the same stuff again at the same level of performance. So like football, you know, being able to run, you know, maybe 20 yards, catch a ball, take a hit, and then
do it again.
Basically jog back to the line and do it again.
At the
be able to still
speed,
run just as fast,
right.
be able to get hit just as hard,
right.
You know, be able to hold on to that ball and be able to like stay at that level of performance as long as possible.
Right.
Versus like endurance would be like if you're running around the football field for a long time, just do this. You know, it's very, very different. And so like I've gotten a lot of football players, you know, over the years, and I would basically my focus is more on stamina with them, not so much endurance, because there's never really a time where a play is going to go much longer than like 30 to 40 seconds.
Right.
You know, and that's a lot. That's actually a pretty long time where one play lasts that long. So the thing is like we would basically, you know, choose movements in the beginning where we're going to deplete like ATP and we're going to get through that power portion first. So we would typically start off with something more explosive like box jumps, something like that. You know, after we warm up, box jumps is going to deplete ATP pretty quick. And then from there we go into like a little bit more power stuff. So I'm talking more in like that 2 to 5 rep range where we focus on some of the main lifts that they have to do, which would be like your bench, your squat, power cleans, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we're just working on performance at that point. That power isn't supposed to necessarily fatigue the muscle. It's just for a max amount of weight, you know, for a certain amount of reps. And we're just trying to be explosive and quick as possible. And then from there, that's where we start to deplete that, and then basically just go through like a strength circuit. Right. And where, you know, we choose maybe 3, 4, 5 different exercises. Yeah. Which are all going to be maybe a combination of isolated movements, some functional stuff like maybe battle ropes, wall ball slams, stuff like that. But maybe with some shoulder presses. And then we'll combine all that, throw it in there, and basically like that first set will be just as hard as the second set, and that second set will be just as hard as the third set. And we're trying to minimize rest periods. Yeah. And that's the ultimate goal. So like maybe we do those 5 exercises, we'll do 3 rounds of that. But after there's no break between every exercise. It's one exercise to the next to the next to the next with a 1 minute break after all that. After everything. And then we do it all again. Right. You know, and like you shouldn't be necessarily, you're gonna be tired, but you should the muscle performance shouldn't be depleting along the way. Right. And that's something that I would say would be a little more sports specific for strength training versus, you know, like annihilating the muscle. Right.
And like you said too, it depends on what sport you're doing. Yeah. And things,
But like, I think, you know, the majority of the people that are coming to the gym are there to change the look of their body.
Right. Well, in this gym, especially.
Well, in almost any gym, I think. Like, I think most people go to the gym to change the look of their body. And guess what? That's bodybuilding.
And that is bodybuilding.
You don't have to compete. You don't have to like pose in front of the mirrors, like, you know, and do all that shit. Bodybuilding is anyone, man or woman, going into the gym to change the look of their bodies.
That's it.
You know?
That's why it's bodybuilding.
Right. So, and now we touched a lot on strength training, specific training for sports and jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the majority of people, they want to change their, and hypertrophy,
so many ways.
Hypertrophy style there is key. Like,
yeah. And I mean, it's interesting, like what Jed was talking about, everybody. I do what all you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, I cycle training, I do higher reps, days. I do lower where you just like contract really hard, squeeze the muscle. We do heavy sets. I mean, all that type of training. I feel like it's like using all of it. It works. You know what I mean? Taking a little bit of everything and doing all of it. I think it works. I think all of it works. It just depends on what you're looking for, but it definitely.
Let me throw out another topic, unless you want to touch on anything Lisa just said.